Welcome in to the Optimus NFL show. I am your host, Brad Bolt, and joining me, as always, is my good mate and co-host. It's Dan O'Connell. Dan, how are we?
Brad, I'm doing good, mate. It is a Saturday night here, so we're closer and closer to week 5 of NFL. So looking forward to the games this week and having a good chat about them.
Yeah, it's going to be good. I'm looking forward to it. I get to I've made sure I've got the Tuesday of next week I've got off, so I'm able to watch the Monday night football game in full. It's also my birthday, so that's my birthday present to myself, as I've given myself the day off of work so I could watch the football. So I'm looking forward to it.
So happy
So we
early
are.
birthday for you and giving yourself a nice birthday present there. So
It
it's
is.
got to be done.
Anytime you get to watch football, it's a good birthday present. What can we
Yeah,
say?
exactly.
So what we're going to do is we are going to go back through, as we have been the other weeks, and we will do our preview of the week 5 games. Now there have been some weeks where, due to scheduling conflicts and things like that, the recordings haven't necessarily got out. But one thing that we have done is Dan and I did our tips for last week, and I just before we started recording, I counted up. So last week, touchdown scorers, I actually had 12 correct out of all of the picks that we had, and Dan had 12 correct as well. So we are actually hitting on about 48% of our picks there. So, or close enough to it. So we're going well. We're going all right. You and I just picking these touchdown scorers each week so far. We're hitting pretty decent clip week in, week out.
Not a bad start to the season for us. Hopefully we can keep it going. I was saying to you during the week, we need to start finding a betting agency to sponsor us now the way we're going.
Maybe because if we're starting to hit it like 48% in our picks there, they may not want to, because they might be costing them a little bit too much money if that's the
case. That's a good point, actually. Didn't think that one through.
If anyone's out there and they would like to sponsor us, please feel free to. But if we start actually having more and more people join up and hitting on the bets, don't blame us. We're just starting. We're hitting a decent patch so far to start this season, so we would like to keep this up. So what we are going to do is, like I said, we're going to go through our week 5 games, over-unders, the line, etc., touchdown scorers, and we're going to be starting with the first London game of the season. It's Jets versus the Vikings. Now, Vikings are currently $1.72 favourites to the Jets, $2.18, and Vikings are 2.5-point favourites. Over-under is 40.5. So, Dan, you can kick us off here. Give us your thoughts on this game, who you're picking, and then your touchdown scorers for this one.
So this one's actually difficult for me to tip at the moment. Obviously, the Vikings have started the year off super hot. They're 4-0. Sam Darnold, he's in MVP conversations the way he started the season at the moment. So whether he can continue along at that pace, we'll have to wait and see. But the way they're playing overall at the Vikings, it's really hard to tip against them at the moment. And I think going over to London kind of levels the playing field a bit. Rodgers has had experience playing over there when he was at the Packers. Didn't really turn out too well for them, but just the fact that he's been able to play over there as well helps them out. But the Jets coming off that game against the Broncos last week, they looked awful. Like, that Broncos defense is legit, but the Jets offense looked bloody hopeless. So can they turn it
Yeah.
around this week against Brian Flores-led Minnesota defense? I don't know. I don't think I'm comfortable enough to think they'll turn it around enough to stop that Vikings offense
Mm.
when it matters. So I'm tipping the Vikings there. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes over the 40.5 points. I think that's going to be in jeopardy there. So I think, yeah, Vikings for the win, going over the 40.5 points, I think, is fairly locked in for me at this stage.
And so who have you got as your touchdown scorers for this week?
So for the Jets, I've gone fair bit of value here with Mike Williams at $4.60. I think it could be a big time Garrett Wilson sort of week after
Yeah.
I don't want to say dramas, but just the things that have been going on at the Jets there with the offense not clicking so far. And then you think about all the talk of Devontae going there now as well, suddenly. So I think Garrett Wilson will be wanting to go out there and prove a point this week. So wouldn't be surprised if he gets a touchdown, but to me that just seemed a little too obvious. So trying to get a bit of value here, $4.60 for Mike Williams, I think's a really good option there. And then for the Vikings, Jordan Addison, $3.75. I like that one as well.
Mm.
Obviously, Sauce Gardner going to look to lock down Justin Jefferson. So that'll open up Jordan Addison a lot as well, even though DJ Reed on the other side there for the Jets is a really good number 2 cornerback. I think Addison might have a good opportunity there to get himself free and get a touchdown there, $3.75.
Yeah, I don't mind those two shout outs. And with Mike Williams, he has been playing more and more as the season goes on. That's sort of what they said originally from the get-go, is he was going to ramp up a little bit as the season went on, and we're starting to see that
Yeah.
now. So yeah, I don't mind that shout. Look, I've also gone the Vikings in this one as well. I'm not trusting how this Jets sort of team has started so far. And it sort of shows there is a little bit of dysfunction there where, as Robert Sala last week sort of mentioned in their game, or, maybe these cadences and everything and trying to catch people off guard on the opposition, maybe we need to stop doing that as much and we should let our players get set, etc. for all the false starts. And Aaron Rodgers pretty much came back and was like, well, maybe our players actually need to get set and get ready themselves and listen, sort of thing. So there's a little bit of dysfunction there going on, which, it's one of those things too. If the Jets don't have a successful season, this whole coaching staff and maybe even front office is gone this year. So I think this could actually be quite an important game for the Jets, but I just feel like the way that the Vikings are humming along at the moment, I like them over the Jets there. So
Yeah.
my touchdown scorers, I know you went Addison. I went Justin Jefferson. I know he's shorter odds, $2.12, but he gets used so many creative and different ways there for the Vikings that, I mean, he never seems to have a bad game. Like,
No.
it seems rare. So I just figure, look, I'm going to stick with Jefferson. So he's always a good shout to go there. And then I've also gone, and for the Jets, I've gone like you with the value base, and I've gone Aaron Rodgers' best friend again in Alan Lazard at $4.30. I just think it's one of those things when you look at the Vikings, that they're obviously going to key in on Garrett Wilson. Mike Williams, yes, he's ramping up, but how much is he actually going to be out there? Whereas I think that, Lazard's going to be out there a little bit more often and has more chance to score for that one.
Yeah, I was surprised Lazard was at $4.30. We've seen him pretty touchdown reliant so far this season, so they're still massive odds for him. I thought that would have been a bit lower. So it's a good option there.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's sort of what I thought. And being that he's one of the few guys who's actually played with Aaron Rodgers before, and he's able to understand those little hand movements that Rodgers does. And, we saw a couple of weeks ago in their win against the Patriots, that quick little bubble screen, that smoke bubble screen that they just threw to Lazard. And when they were down near and he scored the touchdown, it was just one of those things that Rodgers just saw how off cover the cornerback was straight away, and Lazard knew it, and they just didn't really need to communicate anything, and it was straight there, and it was in for a touchdown. So I
Yeah.
could see
And
something like that happening again.
we know Rogers leans on the guys that he trusts as well. And at the moment, Lazard's obviously that guy for him. He hasn't quite got there yet with Garrett Wilson. So we'll
Yeah.
see how it plays out this game. So I like those options.
So moving on to a potentially really good game next. So we've got the Baltimore Ravens at the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, Ravens are $1.71 favourites to the Bengals, $2.19 as the underdogs. Ravens are only 2.5 point favourites, which I guess I understand being on the road. The over-under here is 48.5, so they're expecting a high-scoring game. I have gone with the Ravens on this one. I think we saw that the Bengals have bounced back a little bit last week with their win over the Panthers, but this Ravens team is just class. It's hard to fault them with the way that they dismantled Buffalo last week was pretty impressive. So I've gone with my touchdown scorers. I've gone with Zay Flowers here at $2.95. I'm just, they've been leaning heavily on Justice Hill, on Derrick Henry, Lamar himself. Mark Andrews has barely been seen. I actually thought the last couple of weeks, I thought he was out. And then when you actually go back and look, and you're like, oh no, he is actually playing. He's just not getting the ball.
He's essentially
Isaiah
almost playing
Likely,
as a sixth
a
lineman,
decoy.
just blocking most of the time.
Yeah, pretty much. And like, I don't trust the like Isaiah Likely's. Besides that first game, he's been pretty anonymous as well himself. So
Yeah.
I thought here's a chance that Zay Flowers might get in the end zone. And then for the Bengals, I've gone with Chase Brown, who has really come on, I think, and is starting to maybe establish himself as that number one running back for Cincinnati there.
Yeah, he can be that explosive option for them in the ground game as well.
Yeah. So they're my two picks. Who have you got for this one?
So I've gone the Ravens. Like you said, the way they've played lately, they look extremely hard to beat, and they're getting Derrick Henry rolling along now. That offensive line's starting to play a bit better. We saw them struggle in that first week, but since then, they've been reasonably good, and Derrick Henry's been able to cash in behind them. I do the -2.5 for the Ravens. I think is pretty short, like a lot shorter than I expected or would think would be the line there. Just because the Bengals haven't been that good so far this season, so I guess home field
Mm,
advantage plays into it there. But the way Ravens are playing, I'd expect them to cover that line. I think they
yeah.
should be touchdown favourites in this one, to be honest, for me. So, yeah, I'm picking the Ravens here by a touchdown. I think that over under 48.5, I think should comfortably go over the way these two teams can
Mm.
play. Like they can put up points fairly easily. So, yeah, 48 and a
Well,
half.
if
It's a
it's
big number, but
it feels like too, if we get the Ravens that we saw last week, the Ravens themselves might go over that over under. Like if it's that Baltimore Ravens that we saw against the Bills and they just run rampant, they
yeah,
might score 49 points themselves. So
they could too. Bengals defense could be in a bit of trouble.
they could be.
So, but yeah, I would, yeah, definitely be for me. It's Ravens. I like them to cover the line, and I like to go over on the over under there. My touchdown
Yeah.
scorers again. I've gone for some pretty big time value here. Derrick Henry, wouldn't be surprised if he gets two touchdowns again.
Yeah.
But I feel like it could be a game where Justice Hill gets a fair bit of work as well. Like you said, if the Ravens are playing as hot as they did last week, they could be up by a fair bit and just look
Yeah.
to get Hill there as well to keep Henry fresh. So $4.60 for Justice Hill for a touchdown I like. And then for the Bengals, I think obviously Jamar Chase, T. Higgins are the main guys there. But Andre Yosivas just always seems to get involved now. And they're really
Yeah.
liking him as that third option. And he's
Filling that
hard to
Tyler
match up
Boyd
on for
role.
teams. What was that, sorry?
Mm. I was just saying he's filling in that Tyler Boyd role, that third receiver who
Yeah,
almost becomes that security blanket on third down or, in some of those red zone opportunities when they just need someone to be able to make a quick play. You've got Chase and T. Higgins as your big tall options, and you need someone who can lose their defender and all that congestion. And he seems like that guy now for Cincinnati.
yeah, he's improving a lot as a route runner. We know he's can be explosive as well, and he can make those really acrobatic catches. So I think they'll look to target him a fair bit down in the red zone as well. So $3.90 for him for a touchdown. I like those odds. So again, just trying to look for the best value here without looking at the most obvious ones, I guess. And yeah, those two for me, I like there.
Yeah, no, I like both of those too because, as you said, Yoshavas, he's been getting involved in the play more, and Justice Hill actually is getting a lot more run than I was expecting this year. So he's
Yeah.
becoming a reliable sort of guy as well. So I like those shout outs there. We now move on to a very, very interesting game here with the Carolina Panthers at the Chicago Bears. Now, Bears are $1.49 favorite, Panthers are $2.70 underdogs, and the Bears are 4.5 point favorites here. The over under is 41.5. Now, before you go into it and everything, the reason why I think this game could be interesting is just because obviously everyone's going to spend the majority of the time talking about how these were the two teams who pulled off the trade last year. Carolina going to number one from the Bears, giving up DJ Moore as part of that trade package, selecting Bryce Young when they could have had CJ Stroud or Anthony Richardson, and now Bryce Young is benched, and a lot of people thinking his time in Carolina could actually be over. The Bears then get the first round pick from Carolina as part of that trade and use that to take Caleb Williams, who, if Carolina had stayed pat where they were the previous season, they could have potentially had Caleb Williams at number one there. So there's a lot of storylines around that. So give me your thoughts, pick on this game and your touchdown scorers before I jump into it from my side of things.
So obviously the Panthers are a different team with Andy Dalton under center. He just
Mm,
gives them that calming influence there that he's obviously that veteran in the NFL. He's seen it all before. So it's harder to rattle him than it is with the way Bryce Young was playing. So Panthers are a lot trickier to beat now. But this Bears defense, I think it's going to make life super hard for Andy Dalton this week. And I think that's why you find them such favourites there as well. I am picking the Bears in this one. Caleb Williams has been a bit up and down all over the place so far in his first season. Hasn't really settled into the groove yet in the NFL, but I think he's been able to do enough with that Bears defense to keep him afloat, and I don't think that'll change this week. I don't know if they will cover that 4.5 line there. It could be like a field goal type of game. I think
yeah,
Andy Dalton will be able to keep it close enough as long as he can get enough protection there to be upright and get a bit of time there under center. But yeah, it's a tough one to look at the Panthers and think they'll be able to get over that Bears defense. I think it'll be a low
yeah,
scoring game. I don't think it'll go over the 41.5, to be honest. I think it'll be like a 21-17 type of game
yeah, okay.
for me. My touchdown scorers for the Panthers, I have gone Xavier Leggett. I think he's settling into being an NFL wide receiver now. He's looking really good, and
Mm,
turns out he could be a really good pick for them at the end of the
yeah,
first round, second round. Um, so he's $3.90 for the Bears. I've gone that revenge game factor. DJ Moore, letting them know what they're missing out on, trading him away. So I've got him at $2.95 for a touchdown there. So they're my two guys.
I don't mind the DJ Moore shout out. The only thing that I might say is that he could probably well be shadowed by JC Horn.
Yeah, well, I'd
And
imagine he would be.
yeah, and I'm just gonna try and while I'm looking at this, look up JC Horn's stats this season, just like coverage stats and everything, because he's actually been playing really well. It's one of those things that this is the thing that gets Carolina Panthers fans excited but frustrated at the same time with JC Horn, because you look at the way he's been playing this year, and the Panthers fans are going, he's a top 10 cornerback in the league when healthy. And it's that
Yeah,
annoying part when you have to add the when healthy at the end of
yeah,
it. So he's so he's only allowed, according to PFF, he's only allowed 9 receptions for the season in 4 games. So I mean that's pretty pretty decent there. He's he's going all right there, JC Horn. So only allowing 9 receptions in that many games is, so he's less than it's 2 a game so
Yeah,
far. So
and DJ Moore's their best receiver on the team, so I think it's
yeah,
guaranteed that he'll shadow him across the field wherever he
yeah.
goes, kind of thing.
And I like the Leggett. I'm getting used to myself. I'm training myself to say it because I want to say Xavier Leggett, but it's Xavier Leggett, as he said. But I like that. So he had his best game as a pro last week. So with Adam Thielen out, he was the starting receiver alongside Deontay Johnson. He had 6 catches for 66 yards in his first touchdown. So I do like that. They're getting him the ball in a lot of different ways. It's I guess it's a little bit like that early AJ Brown, DK Metcalf route tree sort of thing that he was doing, like slants, goes, and some bubble screens, and
Yeah,
that's about it to start with. But I think even in these first couple of games, he started to have a bit more nuanced route running in some of the. I'm not going to go into full Panthers breakdown here because we'll be here for the next 3 hours if that's the case. But there's just certain
that's a whole
things that I've
podcast
seen
by
on.
itself.
Yeah, but just there's certain things that he's starting to do now, which really looks like spending some time around Deontay Johnson and Adam Thielen is starting to rub off on him. Like just the way he's maneuvering in his route running. And he ran quick one. He ran a slant last week, and instead of continuing with the slant, he saw where the defense was and he broke it upfield. Like he stemmed. It sort of started on the slant. Went actually, I'm just going to go here, and he got hit in between the zone. It was perfect pass, and it was like, oh, hang on, might have found something there. Like that wasn't the design route, but he was able to improvise and it worked out. So I like those there. Look, yes, I'm a Panthers fan, but I actually believe that they have a shot to win just because I don't know what Caleb is yet. That's my big thing. Like we've seen,
Yeah,
as you mentioned, we've seen the ups, we've seen the downs, we've seen some of that talent that makes Caleb look like, oh yeah, that's why he was a number 1 pick. And then we've had some of those games where you're like, no, that's not looking great so far. I think I am going to go with the Panthers here. Just I know that defense is really good, but Carolina actually has the best offensive line per PFF in the NFL at the moment in terms of effectiveness. So the quarterback is staying upright. Andy Dalton is protected. He's having time to throw. And as you mentioned, Andy Dalton is that much of a pro that he knows if I've got time, I can find my receiver. And he's got a really good route runner in Deontay Johnson. So that's my case. And I'm
yeah.
sticking
No, I
to it.
see that. Like I said, this was a tough one to pick. I just, still don't trust Panthers even with Andy Dalton under center yet.
Well, the only thing that I can say is someone showed a stat that said the first 2 weeks, the Panthers averaged something like 176 yards of offense in the first 2 weeks. Like
Total
average
offense.
that
Yeah.
total offense. In the next 2 weeks, they've averaged 406 with Andy Dalton as quarterback. Like something ridiculous like that. It's like just insane
It
the
makes a hell of a
turnaround.
difference there.
Yeah. So yeah, and it was 1 touchdown in the first 2 weeks, and it's been 7 touchdowns in the next 2 weeks. So the turnaround has been astronomical. So I am going to do one of those things where you see the NFL graphic and you have 10 analysts and all 9 are going Chicago, and I'm going to be that one with the Panther symbol and hope that everyone then's like, yeah, good
So
job picking
you're
the only person
you're
picking the Panthers.
basically Adam Rank anytime the Packers are playing. It doesn't matter who they're playing. Adam Rank just refuses to pick the Packers.
Pretty much. Yep.
So that's what you're
Yep.
gonna. Yeah, that's what you're gonna look like there on the panel.
Yep, exactly. And I'm
That's
either
fair.
going to look like the smartest man alive or the biggest idiot alive. I'm not sure yet. We'll see. But in terms of my touchdown scorers for Chicago, I am going with Rome Adunze at $4.30 there. I've gone with Rome for that thought that uh, JC Horn is probably going to be shadowing DJ Moore for the majority of the game. So that leaves Rome Adunze on like Mike Jackson as the second corner there. So I'm going to go with Rome in there. And then my Carolina touchdown scorer, I've got Chuba Hubbard at $2.50, who's actually getting a lot of praise from Dave Canales and the rest of the Panthers organization that he actually is in line for a really big workload for the rest of this season and into the future, even when Jonathan Brooks comes back. So, yeah, I think Chuba there is a very good shot, and he's running pretty fantastically at the moment. So I'm
Yeah,
liking
it's
what I'm seeing from
surprising how
him.
good he's playing at the moment, especially
Yeah.
considering the way the Panthers are. But no, he's playing well this year.
Speaking of teams that aren't playing well this year, Dolphins at the Patriots. Now, I know we've said this previously, but this is a game I am not going to watch a single second of this game. It interests me none in the slightest here. So somehow the Patriots are favourite at $1.86 to the Dolphins $1.99. Pats are 1.5 point favourites. The over/under is 36.5. Look, I honestly I don't know who to pick here. I'm going with the Dolphins just for the pure fact that maybe Snoop Huntley he can get a couple like one pass to Tyreek and then Devon Achane will just run rampant. That's my sort of thinking there. So,
Yeah.
but I have no faith in any of these teams whatsoever. The only thing that I did notice is that Gerard Mayo has said that Ramondre Stevenson is not starting. He'll still get some work, but he won't be starting. So Antonio Gibson will take over the starting role there. But my touchdown scorers, I've gone with previously mentioned Devon Achane at $2.40. And for the Patriots, look, because I just have no clue whatsoever, I actually went with Pop Douglas here, Demario Douglas at $6.25. It's not very often when the best receiver on a team is at $6.25 to score a touchdown.
No, but you say that and being the best receiver on the team, he's been MIA basically, and not Miami. MIA is in missing in action because he's doing nothing this year, and so are the entire Patriots offense basically, but especially the
I
wide
think that
receivers.
also, I think that has a lot to do with the fact that Jacoby Brissett is getting the snap and he's being tackled before the ball's in his hand. That's how poor the
Yeah,
offensive line is. It's almost like they've got a
it's
center out there for flag football. They forgot to send the guards and the tackles out, and then the center snapped the ball, and Jacoby Brissett's like, "Wait, what?
hang
Really?
on a minute.
Already?"
Yeah, it's about as bad as it can get for the Patriots there, which, considering they're favourites in this game, just goes to show how, I guess, dysfunctional this Dolphins offense is without Tua under center. And you see people constantly try and downplay Tua's abilities and that sort of thing. But when he's not in that lineup, I think the Dolphins are something like 1-6. And they've still got all this
Yeah.
talent on the team as well. But without Tua under center, they're 1-6, which like someone's got to change there, surely. Like I said, with the amount of
Well,
talent they've got, you've got Tyreek Hill, you've got Jalen Waddle, and you've got Devon Achane, and they can't
mm,
score points.
what it does show to me though is how important a backup quarterback in the NFL is nowadays. Like you look at at least with Carolina, like yes, Bryce Young went to absolute shit early on, but they've got Andy Dalton as the backup. You look at like look, I don't really like watching them very much, but Cleveland and Deshaun Watson's not that great, but he's played like terrible like crap this season. But they've got Jameis, who, competent backup, better than some of the others going around. But you're looking around the league and Indianapolis has Joe Flacco, who potentially could be starting this week, and Joe Flacco is a good backup quarterback. And as you're looking around the league, you're starting to see more and more how important that backup quarterback is needing to be. So when Miami lose Tua and they're trotting out Skylar Thompson and Tim Boyle and then now
Yeah.
Tyler Huntley, it really does make you go, well, maybe we need to invest in backup quarterback a little bit more.
And especially for Miami as well, knowing the history of Tua there as well, they should have made a massive effort this off season
Oh,
to get that
100%.
backup quarterback.
Well, I was just thinking, like, LA Rams have got Jimmy Garoppolo. You've got the way the Packers played this year. They got Malik Willis, but like their teams, like good teams, really should be investing in better backup quarterbacks. Now, I know the reason why the Patriots are starting Jacoby Brissett early on because their line is so horrible. They don't want to ruin Drake May early on. But in theory, Drake May will be the starter long term and Jacoby would be the backup. And it's like, okay, he's a solid backup. He's a guy that you would like to have as your backup who, yeah, he shouldn't win the starting job, but he's going to be able to keep you afloat if you're in a playoff hunt.
Yeah. Yeah, they just need a better offensive line there, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I've tipped the Dolphins in this. I can see myself changing to the Patriots and then probably changing back to the Dolphins as well before this game even kicks off. But
And
I
then
just think there's
kicking
too much
yourself whether you changed.
What was that, sorry?
I said then, and then kicking yourself that you changed when suddenly the Patriots are up 35-0, and you're thinking,
like
damn, I
did
should have
last
stuck
week
with the Pats.
changing off of the Raiders and they end up winning last week. Dirty on myself for that. But yeah, this is one of the most disgusting games of the season, to be honest. I won't even watch the 40 and 40 for this one, I don't think. Or the game.
No, that's going to be one of those maybe 5-minute highlights if there's more than 10 points scored. Then it's like, maybe I'll watch a few minutes. But that's
You'd be lucky to fill in 5 minutes of highlights from this game, I think.
So who were your touchdown scorers in this one?
So I just Tyreek Hill at $3. I don't know how often we're going to see him at those odds, to be honest, to get a touchdown. Considering he's one of the few players in the league that can just break it off from anywhere on the field and go the distance. So I've got Tyreek Hill just for no other reason that Devon Achane is just absolutely struggling this season at the moment, which is disappointing to see. So, yeah, just Tyreek Hill and hope for the best. For the Patriots, like you said, Ramondre Stevenson is being benched, so his workload will diminish. I've gone with Antonio Gibson to get a touchdown at $3.75. I don't know how much work either of the running backs will get, but the best of a bad bunch, I think. Gibson at $3.75. Let's just take your pick, I guess, and hope for the best.
Yeah. No, like I said, it's really
hard. I would
hard
advise our listeners to just stay clear of betting anything on this game at all, other than probably the over-under of 36.5. Take the under on that.
This is one of those things that when they when you see on the betting ads where they say gamble responsibly and don't gamble on this game.
It's avoiding this game completely.
Avoid this game. That's my gamble responsibly.
Yeah.
Next game we'll move on to should be a bit of a cracker, I think, just based off of division game. So the Colts are at Jaguars. Jags are favourites at $1.67. Colts are $2.27. The Jags are 2.5-point favourites here. The over-under is 46.5. Now, at the time of us recording, there are no markets on Sportsbet here in Australia for us to bet on touchdown scorers. So Dan and I might give just a touchdown scorer each on this, but we don't actually have any odds here. But I am going to go, and it might surprise you, I'm going to go with the Colts.
I like it.
In this one.
This was
I don't trust this Jags. So, yeah. Like, is there anything about Jacksonville that you actually trust?
Brian Thomas Jr. being a legit NFL wide receiver.
I was literally about to say, besides Brian Thomas Jr. being an absolute superstar. Besides that, there's nothing I trust about Jacksonville.
I don't trust the quarterback getting him the ball often enough and reliably enough. So, which is pretty wild to consider when you're talking about Trevor Lawrence being the quarterback.
Yeah.
Like they're in trouble, the Jags. I think there's going to be a coaching change coming up soon. The way they're playing, so it's tough to see that.
I thought too, even whether it's Anthony Richardson or not at quarterback for the Colts, like as we mentioned, the really good quality backups, like Joe Flacco stepped in last week for Anthony Richardson, played really well. You know, why can't he do it again?
Oh yeah,
So, if Anthony Richardson doesn't play, I actually still really like the Colts, and I think they were one of the smart teams who invested properly in a backup quarterback.
I think to be honest, the way Anthony Richardson started playing this season, I think the Colts are a better chance with Joe Flacco under center at the moment. I think
Mm,
Anthony Richardson's just been too inconsistent up and down. Obviously, they're in a bit a lot for the long haul with him, and he's got a lot of improvement to do. And we knew that coming into the NFL, and it's basically his rookie season at the moment because he was out
yeah,
essentially all of last year. So it's hard to form, I guess, a definitive opinion yet on Anthony Richardson. So I'm not concerned with him overall at the moment, but I just think Joe Flacco does give them a better chance to win at the moment. In saying that, Jonathan Taylor more than likely out for the Colts this week,
yeah. I
which
think they've actually said that he is out.
he is officially out. So that's a massive
I
loss
think,
for them. And basically the only reason I'm tipping the Jaguars in this with absolutely no confidence at all.
yeah. So I was just look, I was just having another quick check. There's still no
Still
touchdown
nothing.
scorers here. Look, if I was going to be picking one from each team, I'd probably go for Indianapolis. I'd go Josh Downs,
Good on you because that's
and
where I was going to go.
okay, okay, I'll check Trey Sermon. Trey
Yeah.
Sermon would be my other one, and then for the Jags, I'm not changing from this. I would go Brian Thomas Jr. as my one for the Jags. So you have to pick someone else. I gave up Josh Downs, so you have to give up Brian Thomas Jr.
I will go with Travis Etienne. I don't trust the other wide receivers there at the moment with the way Trevor Lawrence is playing in that passing game overall. So I'd go with Travis Etienne there as my Jaguars touchdown scorer.
Yeah. No, so like I said, there's no markets at the moment, but they're guys that we're sort of liking so far. Now, moving on to which could potentially be the best game of the weekend here, I will be wanting to watch as much of this
One
as
of the
I
best
can, and
games of the
maybe
season.
yeah. So it's the Buffalo Bills at the Houston Texans. Now, I in looking up to see if we had touchdown scorers. So when Dan actually put this show sheet together, the Bills were $1.91 favorites to the Texans $1.93, and the Bills were 0.5. They were half a point favorite, so it was pretty much a pick 'em.
Yeah.
It is, and the over under was 47.5. Looking online now, the Houston Texans are now $1.87 favorites, and the
Ooh,
Bills are $1.96 underdogs, and the handicap betting has swung, and now the Texans are half a point favorites, and the Bills are the half a point underdogs here. So it is almost pretty much a pick 'em. So in the end, it swung a full point the opposite way from when it was when Dan put this show sheet together. So that's surprising there. Now,
yeah, interesting. It's
this
changed
is
like that within a day.
yeah, that's the thing. That's why I thought when I was looking at it, I was shocked just looking at how much it sort of swung. And do you know what? This is one of those ones that I could actually see this getting up to Texans by 2, or I could see it back to Bills by 1 by the time kickoff starts. Like I could just
Yeah,
see how the money's going to come in. It could swap either way. You were saying earlier about the Miami game, whatever it's being one of them that you'll go back and forth of. This is one that I am 100% going back and forth of constantly as who I think is going to win. Just looking now, I've got Buffalo at the moment. I
yeah,
think I think they might put on one of these insane performances after how they played. How well, what was it? Josh Allen had never lost by double digit points in was it his career or was it something like that I heard last week? I can't remember. Something along those lines. And they got absolutely blown out. So
they got smoked by the Ravens last week. I don't expect that to
this
happen 2 weeks in a row.
no, this to me is one of those ones where they come back and they're pissed off. Like and they just that's sort of my thinking is they're gonna come
Yeah,
back on this angry. And I've got the Bills at the moment, but as I said, I'll probably swap 34 times between now and kickoff. My touchdown scorers, I've gone with Josh Allen at $2.35. And my second guy here is one of two people in the two wide receivers in the NFL, and I'll see if you can guess the other one, who have 3 100-yard receiving games this season. There's only two wide receivers in the NFL, and this guy is one of them, and he's leading the league in receiving at the moment for yards. So I've got
So
Nico
3 out of
Collins
4
here.
games, 100+ yards.
Yeah. So first one here is my guy that I've got here at Nico Collins at $2.20. The second one is just going to be interesting because I heard this today and I was like, oh, that's an interesting stat. I didn't realize it. And I don't think you're going to get it just based off of who you would expect it to be.
No, because it hasn't been that explosive passing offenses this season so far.
No,
Because I was thinking Mike Evans, but he hasn't.
no.
So if it's going to be some out there name. Yeah, I've got nothing.
So I think this is a guy who might come up later on in the show, and it's Seattle Seahawks wide receiver one, DK Metcalf.
God damn it. He was going to be my other option I was going to say, but I'm like, I don't. Because I know he was under that last week, wasn't he?
He
Pretty sure he finished under 100 yards last week. So if
let's
he'd
have a
gone
quick
100
look at
plus
him.
yards in the first 3 weeks, that surprised me. So
No, so he was over 100 last week. It was week
it was.
one against Denver. So week one against Denver, he had 3 receptions for 29 yards. And then since then, he went 10 for 129 and a touchdown against New England, 4 for 104 and a touchdown against Miami, and 7 for 104 against Detroit. So,
Okay. I
so
must have missed his
it's
last catch last week then. So, okay.
yeah. So yeah, I've gone with the at the moment the guy who is currently leading the NFL in receiving yards in Nico Collins, $2.20. He has there was the discussions at the start of the season. Who was wide receiver one? Was it Tank Dell? Was it Nico? Was it Stephon Diggs? How is this going to go? Nico Collins has not only established himself as wide receiver one for the Texans, he's established himself in my mind as a top 10 receiver in the NFL right now.
I was about to ask you, is he top 5 in the NFL at the moment?
Look, he's right up there. I think I've got him, look, 5 or 6. That's where I'd have him around that mark. He's somewhere in there, maybe 5, maybe 6. It's just depending on what you like as in your player and things like that, how they're going. But he's right. He's right on that border, I think.
Yeah. I think once we get to the end of the season, looking forward, I think he's going to be in the discussion as a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL moving forward.
Well, I think if he has another game like he's had so far this season, he will be there by the end of next week, I think. So
Yeah.
looking at this is Nico Collins' stats for this season. Week 1 against Indianapolis, 6 catches, 117 yards. Against Chicago, week 2, 8 catches, 135 yards. Week 3 against Minnesota, very quiet, 4 catches for 86 yards. And week 4 against Jacksonville, 12 catches for 151 yards and a touchdown. This man has 30 catches, 489 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's averaging 16.3 yards per catch at the moment.
Yeah. That's
So,
crazy. Such a good season so far.
And put that in perspective, last year, Nico Collins had 80 catches for the whole season for 1,297 yards at 16.2 yards per catch. He's currently almost halfway to what he had last season in catches in week 4.
Yeah.
That's just insane. Like Nico Collins has, I think he's established himself pretty much as, if he's not top 5 in people's lists, he will be, I think, in the next week or 2.
Yeah. He's definitely got to be spoken about in that sort of regard, I think, as it is now even. So, which is awesome to see. I love Nico Collins, so it's good to see him actually stepping up the way he has now this season.
So we are, after that long rant and a bit of in-show trivia, who have you picked in this and who are your touchdown scorers?
So in that whole time, I haven't changed who I've picked. So comfortable with this. I'm going with the Bills. Like you said, they got smoked last week, and I don't
Yeah,
think they'll come out like that again this week. The Texans, they're 3-1. They haven't really been that overly convincing yet either.
no.
So this is going to be a really good test for them. And I think CJ Stroud's obviously up to it. And like I said, this could be one of the games of the season once it's all said and done. But I just think the Bills will be able to bounce back after what happened last week, and they'll come out to make a statement here as well against an AFC rival. So I've got the Bills in this. I think it'll be close. It'll be a shootout. So definitely that over under 47.5. More than happy to go over on that. I think we're looking at a 50 plus point combined game in this one. So fairly comfortably covering that one. For my touchdown scorers, I've gone. I know Buffalo say they don't really have a main guy, but I've gone who I think is kind of their main guy in Khalil Shakir at
Mhm.
$3.25. But like it could be anyone for them. They spread it around a
Yeah,
lot. So you're always going to get sort of good odds for one of their touchdown scorers for their receivers, which I like. And then for the Texans, I think it's going to get downplayed a bit from, I guess, both teams to try and keep it under wraps. But with everything that sort of got said with Stephon Diggs leaving Buffalo, I think he's going to want to make this be one of those sort of statement revenge games for him. And I think
yeah.
CJ Stroud will understand that as well and want to target him massively. And with Nico Collins getting the best cornerbacks from teams, I think Stephon Diggs will be out for a massive one in this game. So I'd expect a touchdown for him this week at $2.70.
That might actually be one of those ones where it might be a fun bet to do the Stephon Diggs one touchdown, Stephon Diggs 2 touchdown bet.
Yeah.
Like, because it feels like a game, as you said, I didn't even think of it like this, but it does feel like a game that CJ Stroud might hyper target Stephon Diggs to prove a point.
And yeah, I was going to say, and without making it sound bad and kind of, I guess, disrespectful in a sense to CJ Stroud, I think he's got that mentality as well for his guys on his team
Yeah,
where he'll know the importance of this game with the media narrative around it.
yeah,
And like you said, I think he'll try and hyper target Diggs with Nico Collins obviously seeing so much sort of coverage on his side, which he gets every week anyway and still blows up. But yeah, I think
yeah.
this week especially could be a Stephon Diggs massive hit game.
Well, just I did some while you were talking. I did some quick sums just based off of how Nico Collins has started this season. Now, I'm fully aware, people, that he won't keep up this pace for the entire season. But if he does, he's currently on pace for 127 catches, 2,078 yards. Nico Collins is on pace for at the moment.
Yeah,
So,
16 yards a pop as well. So
yeah.
his numbers are going to stay high.
So like I said, I am very aware he's probably not going to, because that works out to be about 7.5. It works out on average to 7.5, 7 catches a game, which he potentially could do, but whether he'll actually average the 122 yards or whatever it is per game that he's currently on pace for, or 125, whatever it was, but I don't see that happening. But still, like, that just shows you, like, um, we're talking about how, like, last year we thought that Tyreek Hill might be the first receiver to crack 2,000 yards. Maybe it's going to be Nico Collins.
Yeah, I think the way he's going to push for that receiving yards record, isn't he?
Yeah. Look, and the thing is too, like, everyone else has still been getting catches, and CJ Stroud is still throwing the ball to other people. Just shows how incredible Nico Collins actually is, that
Yeah.
he's
I
able to
think
pull off numbers like that.
the thing that could change that is when Joe Mixon does get back in the lineup.
Yeah,
They could be more run heavy than what they have been the last few weeks. But yeah, I think Nico Collins is still going to get his no matter what.
yeah, I think so. I mean, I know that he's played a few of these games with Joe Mixon already, but still, like, for what he's been able to do is pretty insane. So put in perspective, you know how last year we were talking about how insane Tyreek Hill was at the start of the season. So
Yeah.
just figuring this out here. So Tyreek Hill started the season, he went for 215 yards in week one. Then he went 40 and then 157. And then he went 58. So through 4 games last season, Tyreek Hill had 470 receiving yards last season, and he had 24, 35. He had 40 catches. 40 catches for 470 yards last season. Nico Collins through 4 weeks is 30 catches for 486 yards. So he's actually got 16 more yards in the first 4 games of the season than what Tyreek Hill had last year. And Tyreek Hill had one of the best seasons by a wide receiver for a long time. And so that's just showing you how incredible this start is for Nico Collins. So
Yeah, that's
this is
pretty
a
crazy.
this is a Nico Collins fan podcast account here. We are all Nico Collins fans here. So
So I've
I hope
just
he
so I've just jumped on Sleeper. Why? Okay, so I'm gonna have to change. So I didn't realize this, but Khalil Shakir is ruled out for this week with an ankle injury.
Oh, I didn't see that.
So that could potentially mean I change my pick as well.
Yeah. Actually,
That's
yeah, I
a
think
big loss for the Bills there. So I didn't actually see that.
no, me either. So I am changing to the Houston Texans are now
Yes,
favorites.
I will go change that, and that would explain why the Texans shifted in the market.
Yeah. And that's why I think too maybe potentially you could see that point go from 0.5 to up to maybe 2 or 2.5 by kickoff.
Yeah. So yeah, that news came out yesterday, which I missed. So yeah, that absolutely explains why that market shifted, and I am now changing to the Texans and a Keon Coleman anytime touchdown as well.
Perfect. See, we are very happy to admit when we've missed stuff here, and we both missed that yesterday, and we're both happy to. So everything we said about the Bills, just disregard because we think the Texans are going to win now.
I think the Texans are going to win. I think it's still going to be a shootout, but it just becomes that little bit harder now for the Texans.
Yeah, no, I agree.
For the
Now,
Bills, I mean, sorry.
next game here that we're going to go to. Browns are at the Commanders. Commanders are $1.59 favorites to the Browns $2.42. The Commanders are 3.5 point favorites. Over under is 43.5. I've gone Commanders here. I do not like watching the Browns at the moment. They're there's nothing really I can say. The Browns just haven't been playing very well, and they're not a fun team to watch. Whereas the Commanders, for me, have been incredibly interesting to watch, and I've loved being watching them. So it's a real heart versus head for me in this one. I don't, in my heart, I like watching the Commanders, but my head says that I really don't like watching the Browns. So we'll just see. But I have gone with a Jerome Ford touchdown here for Cleveland at $2.50. And then I've gone Jaden Daniels again. This is almost like, for me, this is almost like a auto pick each
This
week
is,
is
yeah,
Jaden Daniels.
you'll lock it in weekly.
And he's at $2.50 as well. That's what I don't get. Like $2.50 for a guy who pretty much every week is, if he hasn't got a rushing touchdown, he's like, he could have had a rushing touchdown.
Yeah,
So I think he's
yeah,
got 3 so far in the season, 3 rushing touchdowns so far in the season.
yeah. It's
But
pretty much as automatic
it
as it
just,
gets almost at the moment.
and that's why I just like that idea, he is pretty much in the same way that Josh Allen is for the Bills. He's almost, and Jalen Hurts for the Eagles. He's like the goal line back there.
Yeah, without having the size of them as well and just doing it in a different way.
Yeah. So he's pretty much nearly every week. You can almost guarantee if you're going to listen to this show week in, week out, you can almost guarantee that nearly every week I'll just put Jaden Daniels down as a anytime touchdown scorer for this one. So
And you would
they're
be
my picks on this.
comfortably ahead just doing that now as
Probably.
well. Yeah.
Do you know if you actually did that $5 every week on a Jaden Daniels touchdown, you would probably actually be. You'd be by the season's end, you would have definitely made more than you spent.
Yeah, 100%. So I've gone the Commanders in this. I think the Browns are that unfunctional on offense at the moment that it doesn't really matter how their defense plays. I just have no faith in them at all.
Yeah.
And this Commanders team, the way they've started the season, Jaden Daniels is on pace to do something that no quarterback has done before with his completion percentage. Like, there's people, and I think this is getting way ahead of everyone's selves, but there's people talking about Jaden Daniels being in MVP conversations because of how he's playing to start the season. Which, when you look at the stats, like he's completing 80+% of his passes.
Yeah.
Which we haven't seen from anyone at this point of the season before to start. So, yeah, while I think it's way too early to even talk of him as being in the MVP conversation, I think he's basically a lock at the moment for Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
He's just
Yeah.
playing
100%.
that well. And so, yeah, I love watching the Commanders play. It's exciting to watch them. So I've got them winning this one. I have Amari Cooper as my touchdown scorer. He was flat out awful last week and has been not overly good for most of the season. He's leading the leagues in drops at the moment, which is surprising for him because he's normally got fairly sure hands. But I just think the way he played last week, he'll want to bounce back here. And so I've got him as my touchdown scorer at $3.45. For the Commanders, looks like Brian Robinson Jr. is out, confirmed out. So I think Austin Eckler will get a decent uptick in usage, and I've got him as my touchdown scorer for the Commanders at $2.18. Which why he's less than what Jaden Daniels is?
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever.
No.
But
I've taken Eckler there.
Yeah, so just what you were saying in terms of Jaden Daniels. So he is currently 13th in the league in passing yards for the season. And that includes the fact that Kirk Cousins and Baker Mayfield have both played one more game. And Kirk Cousins is currently leading the NFL with 1,373 yards, and he threw for 509 yards. So if you take his 509 off, he was actually behind Jaden Daniels before this week started in terms of passing yards. So, yeah. So it's one of those things too. Jaden Daniels is yards per attempt. I'm just looking at that. So yards per attempt. When you actually look at this, these are the quarterbacks who. When you sort this, there's a couple of people who've had a few passes, which we won't count. But these are the quarterbacks who have played 2 or more games, who have a higher yards per attempt than what Jaden Daniels does. Malik Willis was 9.5 yards per attempt in his 2 games. Brock Purdy is 9.3 yards. Sam Darnold is 8.8. Anthony Richardson and Jaden Daniels are both 8.5. So that's it. And then, as we said, completion percentage. He is, of those quarterbacks, he is first. Like, it's just, it's insane. Like how, so with these passing stats as well. So just sorting all this sort of stuff out as we're going through here. He has 10, 20 plus yard passes as well. So it's not like he's 80% completion percentage on, bubble screens that are only getting, 2 to 3 yards at a time. He's actually trying to throw the ball downfield as well. So the fact that he's as accurate as he has been is almost unheard of for seasoned quarterbacks, let alone rookies. So yeah, Jalen
Yes.
Daniels, if he's definitely, like you said, I know it's early, but if he finishes out the season, he probably's got Rookie of the Year locked up nice and tight there. So
Yeah, definitely.
okay, we'll breeze through these last couple because some of these we've sort of just hit over that hour mark now. So we'll try and breeze through some of these. Cardinals are at the 49ers. 49ers are $1.27 favorites here. Cardinals are $3.95, and the 49ers are 7.5-point favorites, and the over-under 49.5. I've got the 49ers here, and I have gone with George Kittle at $2.60. And then for the Cardinals, I've got James Conner at $2.18 as my scorers.
I like it. I like the Kittle one as well. 49ers are my tip in this. They haven't been convincing this year, but they've been dealing with a lot of injuries to start the season. But what I'm seeing is Brock Purdy is a legitimate top quarterback. There's all this
Yeah,
talk about he's got the Avengers and he's only good because of his supporting cast, but I think that's been blown out of the water by him now, to be honest.
yeah,
I think he's just a flat out good quarterback in the NFL, and he's only getting better as well. So I think the narrative around him needs to change. I think people are just stuck in their sort of preconceived notions about him. But yeah, he's impressed me a lot this season with everything going on there as well.
if he was a first round pick, everyone would be losing their mind saying how incredible he's playing. It's a fact that he was Mr. Irrelevant that people are like, well, it's because it's Kyle Shanahan's system.
Yeah, yeah, they all make the
Like,
caveats of Kyle Shanahan's system. He's got that many weapons around him, but we've seen he's succeeded without the weapons this year on occasion. So yeah,
yeah,
I think he's just becoming a really good quarterback in the NFL. So I've got them winning this one. I think I don't know, that 49ers defense, the Cardinals will struggle there. So the line being 49 and a half, the over under being 49 and a half, I think is fairly high in this one. I could see a lot of points being scored, but I just said 49 and a half is a big number
yeah,
against that 49ers defense. But we'll see how it goes there. I'll avoid that probably because I don't know as high as it is. My
mm,
touchdown scorers, I think Kyler Murray's just got to make something happen this week. So I can see him
yeah,
scrambling for a touchdown. So $3.80, I think that's insane value, to be honest.
yeah. I like the value.
And yeah, and for the 49ers, Brandon Ayuk's had a really tough season so far,
Mm,
but I feel like this could be the week where he kind of puts it together and gets himself a touchdown there.
yep. No, I like them. Move on to another game, which is a division game, which probably neither of us will watch as well. Raiders at the Broncos. Raiders are current underdogs at $2.30. Broncos are $1.65 favorites, and the line is Broncos minus 2.5. Over under 35.5. Dan, give us your pick and touchdown scorer because I can tell you I'm not going to watch a second of this game.
No, I'm not watching this. I am picking the Broncos. Their defense is extremely good this year, and it just continues to be impressive. So I think the Raiders are really going to struggle in this. So I've got the Broncos. I 35 and a half is the lowest over under this week, which says just how bad this game's expected to be, considering the Patriots
Yeah,
and Dolphins has a higher over under than this game. So
yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if that over under doesn't even get close, to be honest. But
yeah,
for my touchdown scorers for the Raiders, I've gone Brock Bowers. I think he becomes their main guy there. Devontae Adams out and more than likely being traded in the next week or so. So Brock Bowers becomes that sort of number one target on offense there. So at $4.20, I know we're not expecting many points in this game, but that's a big number there for their kind of number one guy on
Mm.
offense. And then for the Broncos, I genuinely don't know about their receivers, so I've just gone with Javonte Williams at $2.75.
Yeah, well, just to say like how much we don't trust this Broncos team into the third quarter last week. Um, Bo Nix had minus passing yards last week in the third quarter. And this wasn't one of those ones where they go, oh, we'll take into account the sacks or whatever. It was like, no, this was net pass. This was passing yards that his passes were behind the line of scrimmage
Yeah,
and he was actually minus. Like, this is just how bad it was last week. He finished the game, he threw for 60 yards. That was it. And they
and I
won.
think pretty much all of those yards came about with Cortland Sutton. Like he was the only
Well,
one at one point in time in the game. He was the only one with positive receiving yards.
and that's why he is my touchdown pick for the Broncos. I figured that he might have one forward pass in front of the line of scrimmage, and that happens to go to Cortland Sutton, who
That
makes something
people is also
happen.
what we call a nice little segue there
It
of
is. That
leading
was
you into your
perfect.
touchdown scorer.
Well, and you said you thought yours was some nice little volume there at $4.20 with Brock Bowers. I've gone with Trey Tucker at $5. Now, Trey Tucker, I've picked for the pure fact that look, Pat Surtain maybe is the best cornerback in the league. It's right there between him and Sauce Gardner for me. And Sauce has sort of maybe had a bit of a down season in comparison to his last couple. So Pat Surtain's actually played incredible. He'll be taking on Jacoby Myers for most of the game. And that's going to leave Trey Tucker, who is the sort of gadget guy who gets used all over the formation, some jet sweeps, all of that type of stuff. He and Gardner Minshew sort of looks for him a fair bit. So, and Aiden O'Connell's look, they're the guy. If O'Connell gets in and plays, they're sort of he's going to become that guy along with Brock Bowers, as you mentioned, for touchdown scorer. But I just like the way that he is actually used by the Raiders all over the field, and they're starting to target him more and more as the weeks go on, especially with Devontae out. He's
Yeah,
becoming a very quite often targeted sort of player there. I join you in the Broncos, but once again, I potentially could just change it because I just don't like this Broncos offense. Like that's just I know that their defense is pretty good, but all it takes is, and we saw it last week with the Broncos. It was 10-9. I know it was pouring with rain and it was horrible weather, but
yeah,
one touchdown against this Broncos team, and they might not have the ability to score points. So, look, I actually am quite confident in Trey Tucker there. So
no, I
he
like
might
it.
pop
What
up.
is it? $5
He
is good
he
for that.
yeah he might just in terms of segues too. He might just appear later on in our best bet segment. Just saying. Um, moving on to your team here, Packers at the Rams. Packers are $1.67 favorites. Rams at $2.37. The Packers are minus 3.5 point favorites. The over/under is 48.5. The news coming out today, we're not sure whether this is true or not, but Romeo Dobbs has not been at practice on Thursday or Friday and has apparently stayed away because of his displeasure with his role in the offense. Now, some people were saying, what do you expect? You had Malik Willis passing the last couple games, but there was another theory that I saw floated by someone. Can't remember who it was. I want to say maybe it was Ken Inglis, the Packers cap guy that you got me
Ken
onto.
Ingles, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Ingles, that's right. But he mentioned that maybe it's possible that he was expecting a bigger role, and then when they've come in and said, with no Christian Watson out this week, that they're looking, maybe they want to target these guys like Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Tucker Kraft potentially, and maybe that's upset him, and that maybe that's the reason why he's not happy with his role in the team, thinking that he should. That was a theory that was floated. I'm not saying that I agree with it, but this could all just be absolute nothing, and he actually has a personal matter he needs to deal with. So we don't know, but I have still gone with the Packers in this one, and I'll give my touchdown scorers, and then you can give your take on all of this. I've gone with Tucker Kraft at $3.20. I really like. I thought Musgrave was the tight end for them, and Tucker Craft was the guy who could step in when he wasn't playing. But it actually feels like it's reversed now. To me, it feels like Tucker Craft is the guy there at
Yeah.
that position. So I've gone with him at $3.20, which I really like that value, especially with no Dobbs and no Christian Watson. And I've gone with Tutu Atwell at $3.80 for the Rams. With all the guys out, he's sort of a guy that Matthew Stafford has some chemistry with, so I like him there. So give us your picks and then your thoughts on this whole situation with the Packers at the moment.
Yeah, so I've gone with the Packers, not only because they're my team, just because they should win this one fairly comfortably as far as I'm concerned. I think that line at -3.5, I'm pumping the line on that so hard. Like, that's
Yeah.
low. I'm expecting this to be a touchdown plus kind of win for the Packers. So the Rams just have too many people out, too many injuries. That offensive line as well
Yeah.
for them is decimated as well. So as good as Matthew Stafford is and proving me wrong that he is a top 7 quarterback in the league this year, I don't think he'll have enough to get over the line here and keep it close.
By the way, you're not actually contractually obligated to say that he is proving himself to be a top 7 quarterback, because I had him in that range in our preseason quarterback rankings. You don't have to bring that up every week, but I do
I'm a,
appreciate that you're saying that you're
I'm
happy
a
to
big
admit that
enough
you were
I'm a big
wrong.
enough man to admit that I got that completely wrong at the moment. So what he's doing without Cooper Cup and Puka Nakua is incredibly impressive, and behind that makeshift offensive line. So
Yeah.
kudos to you. I was proven wrong with him. So
Like I said, you don't have to bring it up all the time, but
eventually I'll be able to say, no, see, I told you so. I was right.
when
When
he's
the wheels
retired.
fall off completely. But no, getting off track here. But yeah, as far as the Romeo Dobbs situation goes, I don't know what to read into it, because he's genuinely one of the quietest people, not only on the team, but in the entire league. He barely says 2 words kind of thing in interviews and that. So to see
Mm.
this come out about him, and I think there was like talk that he demanded a trade, which I don't believe at all. I I can see him being disgruntled about the game plan this week, but as far as over the season's gone so far, he's playing more than any receiver on this team. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just such a weird situation that come out, and I don't know. I think there's more to it, I guess, without going too deep into it. But I think there's more to it than just purely football at the moment. So I don't know. It's a tough situation, and I definitely didn't expect something like this to come from him, especially. So
No,
we'll see how it
it,
plays
it
out over the next sort of week or so.
it does seem odd, and that's one of the difficult things is because we're not there. You're not behind the scenes. You don't know what's happening week in, week out. That maybe there has been something that's happened behind closed doors that no one's seen. That's
Yeah,
the reason that's leading to this discontent, but we just don't know. So it is just pure speculation at the moment, and
yeah,
yeah, it's hard to know what is real and what's not.
yeah. We just sit back and see how it all plays out, and hope he gets back on the field for them. But yeah, like I said, no Dobbs this week, no Christian Watson. I've gone with Dontavian Wicks as my touchdown scorer at $2.60. I think Jaden Reed was the most obvious pick ever in this
Yeah.
game, but like I said, I'll look for a bit of value. And then, yeah, Dontavian Wicks, I think, will have a big game this week. Jaden Reed, by the way, is putting himself in the conversation as we talk about Nico Collins top 5. I think Jaden Reed's starting to put himself in the conversation as a top 10 wide receiver in this league.
To
He can do
me,
everything on the field.
too, how the big thing of the last few years since like 2020 sort of thing was everyone coming in who could take handoffs in the backfield or on these jet sweeps. They were like, oh, this is the next Debo Samuel. I
Yeah,
think you'll see by the end of this season, it's going to become who is the next Jaden Reed. That's sort of my vibe on it. Look, I'm not sure yet if he's close to, like, he's probably close to that top 10, but I don't know exactly yet where I'd place him. Like, I'd have to sit down and really think about it. But to me, he's going, even if he's not, even if he never ends up as a top 10 wide receiver, to me, he's going to become number one in the comparison wide receiver. Like, we need a guy like Jaden Reed. Like, every team
Yeah.
is going to be going, get me a Jaden Reed. You know, the same way that now a lot of teams are like, get me a Debo Samuel. Well, it's not that easy to find a Debo Samuel.
No, he's
But
kind
that's
of
where I
one
think,
of one because of his build and everything else like that.
yeah, but I sort of feel like maybe Jaden Reed's going to become like that. It's like, okay, we want a Debo Samuel type of guy, but who's also a really great route technician who isn't built like Debo, but is built like Jaden Reed. Like, to me, that's where it's going to be coming in the next couple of years. That people are going to be going, find me a Jaden Reed,
Yeah,
and
and
I think
he's
that's where he could end up.
100%. And he's like 5'11", 187. So he's on the small side, but he plays like he's 6'2" and 200
Yeah,
plus
see, I
pounds.
thought I thought the way that you were saying, I actually, before you said that, I thought he was the same height as Nico Collins. I thought he was a 6'3" guy.
That's the
Like,
size he plays at. Yeah,
yeah, that's what I mean though. Like, if you told me, if you said to me, look, you've got to guess he's either 6'3" or 5'11", I would have laughed at you if you told me that oh yeah, it's 5'11". There's no way he's 5'11". Like, I honestly thought he was about 6'3", so that's surprising.
yeah, and I think he's their most important wide receiver. Like Christian Watson may not get the volume that I think everyone's wanted him to get, and I don't think he was ever going to be that player. But
No,
he can take the stress off the other receivers just because teams have to play Christian Watson a certain way because of
yeah,
how explosive he is and just the way you can get a touchdown from anywhere on the field and just take it from anywhere.
this
So
this
Jaden
isn't
Reed, I think, is their most important overall wide receiver.
this isn't meant to upset you, and it's not meant this way. But is Christian Watson the modern day Will Fuller? Like, when
Oh,
he's
it's
on the
yeah,
field, when he's on the field, he's like, he can be a game changer with 2 receptions. Like, 2 receptions, he could have 2 grabs for 65 yards, 2 touchdowns, and completely change the game. Just because he's on the field, he tilts the field over to his side to create open. But, like, he could have a game where he gets 6 catches, 135 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then he could go 3 weeks with 1 catch in each game. And you sort of
yeah,
get super frustrated by him, but he plays a specific role within the team. And then, not like, his injury that he got the other, is not his fault whatsoever. But you know what I mean? Like, Will Fuller ended up with a lot of those sort of injuries that he just happened to be in the wrong spot at the wrong time.
yeah.
And it
This
just sort of, and like, I think he's a better player than Will Fuller, but do you know what I mean? Like, he sort of has that same Will Fuller vibes that he can go 1 week where he has an absolute monster game, and then he could go 2, 3 weeks without barely getting a catch because of it's not the right matchup for him that week.
Yeah, and I think the biggest difference there, other than size wise, but the biggest difference in the way they play, Christian Watson's one of the best run blocking wide receivers in the league,
Yeah,
and he's more than happy to do it as well. So I think his value to the team goes beyond receiving, and I don't think a lot of
yeah,
people, even within the Packers fan base, I don't think a lot of people appreciate that part of his game as much as they should because they expect him to
mm,
be that explosive guy that's getting all these catches and touchdowns and this and that. But his value to the team far outweighs, I think, what you'll see on the stat sheet. He just, yeah, like I
and
said,
that
this latest injury is super unlucky, but he just needs to stay on the
mm.
field now.
Well, that's what I mean. That's where I'm thinking like Will Fuller vibes, because Will Fuller, like you said, yeah, different types of players, but he had that field altering speed and plays and stuff. And defenses would really have to account for him and that speed, but doing so opened up so many avenues for the run game, for
Yeah.
the other receivers, whatever. He could be that guy for the Packers, but he will be one of those sort of frustratingly type of players that he won't be super consistent because of the type of game that because the Packers too, like, by having your Josh Jacobs and stuff, they could come out in one of these weeks and they could run the ball 35 times and not pass the ball as much, just because of Matt LaFleur knows the team and knows their weakness is stopping the run. So it's like, okay, he might have 2 targets in this game, and but one of them's going to be a long shot off of play action. But then, the next week he could go off and have 7 catches and wreak havoc. But then the week after he'd go back and you're like, oh shit, he was actually out on the field. I didn't
Yeah.
realize. It's not his fault. It's not his fault at all. But he is that type of receiver, as you said. He's not going to be that prolific. He's getting 8 catches each week, or he's the main focal point of the offense every week.
Yeah. And we've seen him this year as well when he was on the field with Malik Willis at quarterback. He was getting wide open on so many occasions,
Yeah.
but they just didn't. It wasn't the read where they were targeting him and that sort of thing. And yeah, it's, like I said, goes beyond stat sheet with him. And I think more people need to actually just understand that when they're questioning his game and that sort of thing, to be honest. So
Yeah.
I didn't actually get to my Rams touchdown scorer after we went on a rant on the Packers, but
No.
I've gone the other Rams wide receiver in Jordan Whittington at $3.70. He's actually putting together a decent little season so far, from coming from nowhere, really. So it's good to see him step in the way he has in the absence of Cup and Puka Nakua. So, yeah, in a game where you got Matthew Stafford, I think they're going to score points still. So I think good odds for Jordan Whittington. I like your pick of Tutu Atwell as well. So see how it plays out.
See how we go. We'll get to these last couple. Thanks if you've been here with us this long. We've gone on a couple long tangents, so we're nearly hitting the hour and a half mark here. So we better speed this last part up. Giants at the Seahawks. I think we're both going to be with the Seahawks here. They're $1.33 favourites, $3.47 for the Giants, and they're 6.5 point favourites. The Seahawks are. Over unders 43.5. I've gone touchdown scorers. I've gone Jackson Smith and Jigba at $3.10. He is starting to establish. He's coming on. He's starting to establish himself as that wide receiver too. There, I feel like, and just because they might focus with Malik Neighbors out and the defense may be focusing on Wan'Dale Robinson, I have gone with Darius Slayton at $3.80, who potentially. I've been listening to the Ringer Fantasy Football podcast a bit, and Danny Heifert's a Giants fan, friend of the show here. He's been on a couple times on the Lab show previously. He, as a Giants fan, actually believes that Darius Slayton will be a Kansas City Chief within the next couple of weeks because it wouldn't cost. And I really like that because he said it's only going to cost the Chiefs maybe a 5th or a 6th round pick for him.
Yeah.
And he could fit well into that team in that Rashee Rice type of role. So I'm going with those 2 guys as my touchdown scorers there. Who have you got?
So I've got the Seahawks in this fairly comfortably. Malik Neighbors being out is a massive loss for the Giants, obviously. And I think it essentially just takes any chance of them competing in this game out the window. So I've got Seahawks comfortably. I have gone with Wan'Dale Robinson as my touchdown scorer. I think he'll still be hyper targeted as well. So at $4.10, they've got to score points.
Yeah.
Just keep with the Seahawks. $4.10, I'll take that. Take a chance on that.
Yeah.
For the Seahawks, I've gone that man, DK Metcalf, having a monster season so far. So $2.50 for him, I will happily take a shot at.
Nice. We now head on to Sunday night football, and this is the clash to me of the 80s. It's the Cowboys and Steelers, 2 iconic teams there. Steelers are currently 2.5 point favourites here. $1.74 for the Steelers to $2.15 for the Cowboys. The over-under is 43.5. The reason why the Steelers are favourites is a lot to do with the fact that there's no DeMarcus Lawrence or Micah Parsons. He has been ruled out this week, so that defense is already giving up a ton of running room to everyone with those guys playing. So without them, you're expecting that to get even worse this week. So that has led into I've gone with the Steelers in this game. And that has led into the fact they're giving up so much running room. I've gone with Najee Harris at $2.05 there as my touchdown scorer. And then for the Cowboys, their offense has not quite resembled the offense we've become accustomed to. There is no Brandon Cooks in this. So to me, Dak is going to hyper target CD Lamb even more. So I have him as at a touchdown score at $2.20.
Nice. Yeah, this one's hard to pick for me. I went with the Cowboys. I don't know if the Steelers can keep up what they're doing at the moment. So to see them go 4-1 would be pretty crazy from what I was expecting this season. But like I said, Micah Parsons being out, a huge loss.
Yeah.
Marcus Lawrence as well. Like they're just missing a lot on defense there, the Cowboys. I will stick with them. Not confident, but I don't think they can keep playing as poorly as they have been. I think this could be the game that sort of sparks a bit of a run for them. So I'll take the Cowboys in this and just see how they go. My touchdown scorers, I've got the Cowboys RB1 in Rico Dowdle at $3.30. He's becoming the guy there. Zeke is obviously not what he was, and people that were expecting the prime Zeke are kind of kidding themselves before this season. So Rico Dowdle, I think will get a touchdown at $3.30. And I've got Justin Fields scrambling for one at $2.55.
That Fields one actually is going to be one of those ones. I'm probably by the time I finalize my bets, I think I might do the Justin Fields 1 touchdown and 2 touchdowns as well. So I
Yeah,
just don't trust that Cowboys defense without Micah and Demarcus Lawrence,
yeah,
especially with
nice.
how much they've been given up so far this season anyway. So we now move on to our last game here: the Saints at the Chiefs. Saints are $3.10 underdogs. Chiefs are $1.39 favorites, and the Chiefs are minus 5.5 point favorites there. Over under is 43.5. Who have you picked and your touchdown scorers in this one, Dan?
So I've gone with the Chiefs. If they weren't at home, I honestly could have seen myself picking the Saints because the Chiefs haven't looked good this year. They just keep winning,
Mm,
obviously, but they haven't looked good. I think they're there for the taking in some of these games, but I just
yeah,
think at home they're too hard to beat. So I've gone with the Chiefs there. I That line 5.5 for the Chiefs. I can see myself taking the points there for the Saints. I think they can keep this relatively close, to be honest. So, yeah, 5.5 for the Chiefs start. Not so sure there. I'd take the Saints on there. 43.5 over under. Both teams can score points. Hasn't looked good for the Chiefs, but they can explode at any moment. Rashee Rice, we're talking about Darius Slayton being traded to the Chiefs. Turns out that Rashee Rice may not even be out all that long overall, to be honest
yeah.
now. So, which is considering we were looking at season ending for Rice when it first happened, to now potentially being out another couple of weeks maybe, and that's it. So interesting to watch there.
Yeah.
But I've gone with Chris Olave as my touchdown scorer for the Saints at $3.25. And I
Mhm.
think Xavier Worthy at $2.75. I was going to pick Travis Kelsey here, who I think will take another step in, still being that guy at tight end. We haven't seen him targeted much early on in the season, but started to see it last week a bit. And I think that'll continue this week. But yeah, Xavier Worthy, 275 for me.
I like that. My only thing that I was thinking with whether Rashee Rice is out for a long time or not much at all is I still like the idea of picking up a guy like Darius Slayton, just because I think he's an upgrade over Juju
Yeah,
um, at the moment. And Look, I also think if you were to get a guy like Darius Slayton, he might actually be able to then give you that opportunity to give Rashee Rice a little bit more of a rest and make sure that he is fully healed and he doesn't come back too early. So that was my only thinking too with that. After I heard Danny Heifetz say it, I was like, actually, yeah, I sort of like that thinking that like, okay, well, yeah, even if you got Darius Slayton, even if Rashee Rice comes back, I think they could exist in a world together. So
Yeah.
So that was my thing in there. So I have gone with the Chiefs as well. I don't know what Saints team we're going to get, whether you're going to get that team of the first 2 weeks or the team the last couple, sort of, and how they've played. So I've just gone with the Chiefs there. And I have got, for the Saints, I've got Rashid Shaheed at $3.80. He is that guy this season who he either goes off and has a big game or he's barely sighted at all.
Yeah.
I think you might have one of these ones where he potentially could just get loose on one busted coverage and long touchdown. So that was my sort of thinking there. And I've gone with Kareem Hunt at $2.50. Carson Steele, we saw he had that fumble last week and then he was barely sighted then again for the rest of the game. And Kareem Hunt came off the streets and stepped back in. He had like 14 touches or something in that game and scored.
Yeah.
So he's pretty much come back straight in and he's going to be back to that number one running back role, I think, moving forward. And that
Yeah.
story of
They're
Carson Steele
comfortable
was
with him
nice.
there.
Yeah, and I think that story of Carson Steele was nice, but I think he is then going to find himself maybe back in that fullback role who's not on the field as much. Maybe for those like 3rd and 1 sort of, okay, we need 1 yard type of runs, but that's sort of where I've gone with that. So they are our picks there. Thank you, everyone who has stayed around. We'll just quickly race through my best bet multi touchdown here for this week. So I'm going Chase Brown at $2.75, Jaden Daniels at $2.50, and Trey Tucker at $5. So the total value there is $34.37. So a $5 bet on that gives me a payout of $171.87. So that's my best bet 3 there that I like. And I could have gone something simple with like Kareem Hunt there instead of Trey Tucker, but I sort of like the idea of Trey Tucker getting a touchdown and also bumping those odds up a little bit. So if you
Yep.
do like any of the picks that I've picked in there and you want to make one of your own, that would sort of be that Trey Tucker one. I could understand if you were to swap that one out. So Dan, who is your best bet multi for
So I've
this
just
game?
mixed mine
Who's
up a little
running?
bit there from what I did have, and it's gave me better odds. But
Mm-hmm.
I've put in Kyler Murray as a scrambling
Yep.
touchdown as one of mine at $4. It's now $4 there.
Mm.
I've got Dontavian Wicks at $2.65. So he's gone up a tiny bit as well, and DK Metcalf at $2.50. So overall odds there of $26.50. So $5 on that. See a $132.50 payout, which is quite good. Yeah. I think Kyler Murray, that scramble touchdown just to make something happen. I think he's almost a lock for me.
See, if I were to mix and match a couple of ours, I would probably take my Chase Brown, my Jaden Daniels. If I was going to go ultra, here I'm going to go 5 people. Have you got the sports bet thing there that you can put this in,
Yeah.
or have you? So
No, I got it.
if you go Dontavian Wicks and DK Metcalf,
Yep.
and then go Chase Brown and Jaden Daniels, and then I would like to add, I reckon Justin Fields. So 5 touchdown scorers there.
All right,
Yeah.
give me 2 seconds. We're just slow loading the markets in. We'll add in, where are we at? We want Jaden Daniels. We want, where is Chase Brown at? They're not there. Where are we at? Let's scroll along. All right, so there. Geez, this does take a while to load up on the app here.
So Chase Brown's jumped up to $2.80 now.
There's
Which
been
I
a
like.
fair bit of movement in since I looked at it yesterday. So we add Chase Brown in, $2.80, and then we go find Justin Fields. Where are they?
So
why is that not loading up? There we go.
So I'm liking the looks of these guys because I could see all of them being in really good spots to actually score here. Like I know these are smaller odd guys, but if you were to put 4 or 5 of these together, like I don't see why that couldn't hit.
Yeah, and like you said, they're good. Oh, why have I got that in there? Right, hang on a minute. There we go. Yeah, the odds of these guys are low, but when you put in this sort of multi together, that's what you kind of want. You want to put the obvious ones in there. Whereas with our single ones, we're looking for that value. But when you're mixing this multi in, you want to get the guys that you think are definitely going to hit. So with these 5 guys here, we got DK Metcalf at 250, Dontavian Wicks 265, Jaden Daniels 245, Chase Brown at $2.80, and Justin Fields $2.55. That is a total value of $115.89. So $5 on that, you're looking at $579.45.
Now that's not the worst bet in the world, is it? When you think
No,
of it.
I
And
like
I
that.
just I went and did that, and I added in Kareem Hunt as well, and that bumps it up to $289.72.
Jesus.
If you
So
add
you're
Kareem
looking at
Hunt into,
nearly
so you look,
$1,200 there for that.
yeah. So if I did that, $5 on that is $1,448.63
Well, even better
for
than I
that.
thought on quick math.
Yeah. So then even if you went like a who was another one that we really liked in there? Oh, let's add, just for argument's sake, we'll add Nico Collins into that as well because we both like that look of Nico. He's at $2.25. We add Nico in, 7 touchdown scorers. That bumps that up to $651.88. Which, if you put it then $5 on those guys to score, it's a payout of $3,259.43.
It's not bad. Like, there's not many guys in that I'd say is going to stuff that bet up. Obviously,
No,
things in the NFL aren't as easy as that, but it's about as good as you can ask for.
that's sort of what I was thinking. It's like, do you know what? There's worse guys in the NFL to pick than those
Yeah.
guys there. So while I actually just decided, since we're talking, we're doing it right now. I've just placed that. I've
Just
just put
live
my
betting here.
$5 on that. Just like I said, you get those odds now before they start to drop or whatever. So,
Yeah, bit
but
of shifting in the next couple of days.
I think, like I said, you can go through some of these and you could pick some of your best bets who we're liking, and we've gone not the top, like the Derek Henrys who are paying $1.83 and things like that. So we're trying to give you some other options here that could potentially pay out and just give you guys a bit of a heads up and maybe give you a bit more of just okay, we don't want the standard people there. So that'll do it for this week. Sorry, this was probably our longest episode we've actually done this season here. We're up over an hour and a half mark.
We
So
went off
thank
on a
you,
couple of
anyone.
tangents on some of these games, but that's what tends to happen with us.
It does. But I think what you will find is that this actually then gives you guys a fair bit of insight as to what we're thinking. But we also like to do this in a way that you guys can see that we're just having fun like you guys are who are listening to us. So Dan, have you got any final words before we get out of here for the week?
I think there's, like we were saying, there's a few games this week where are going to be really exciting to watch, see how it plays out. And then there's quite a few that, well, there's two in general that just flat out avoid. And then there's a few that could really go either way. So they may not seem like the best games to watch on paper, but they could be the most exciting ones of the week, to be honest, because you just
Yeah.
don't know how they're going to play out. So could be one of those weeks where we look back on it next week when we're recording and go, wow, a whole bunch of stuff happened this week.
Well, that sort of seems to be the way the NFL season is playing out so far this season. So it's a bit of a surprise from our point of view to see how this has planned out. But thank you all for listening who have stayed around and heard us for this long, ramble on and on, but we truly appreciate it. So if you'd like to get in contact with us, you can find Dan at beard_82. You can find me at Brab1. You can find all of the team at Optimus Fantasy. Also, if you are a person who likes to jump on Reddit on Sundays just before the games start, Nate and a few of the other crew are on there every Sunday for your last minute start sit questions. So if you have anything, feel free to jump on Reddit and you'll have guys like Nate and Herms and a few other people jump in. Casey Kasem's on there as well at times. So there's a lot of questions there. They're always happy to help you guys out if you're big fantasy football fans and you're a bit stuck in your last minute decisions. Find us at Optimus Fantasy website as well. A lot of great articles going on in there. Nate has rankings. Who's been putting out some betting content as well. So there's a lot of good people over there. Casey's had some great articles and stuff as well. So please feel free to jump on there. Dan, any last words before we close the show out?
No, looking forward to some college football in the morning, and then obviously the NFL kickoff. We got daylight savings kicking in here, so we get that little extra hour sleep in before the game starts. So that's always a good time of year as well.
It's nice. It's nice. Instead of waking up at 2:00 in the morning, it's now 3:00. So, well, for me anyway, it's what 3:30 for you or something. So,
yeah, 3:00
something like
kickoffs
that.
normally, so we're up to 4:00 kickoffs now.
So it's nice to get that extra hour of sleep in before the game starts. So
take it when you can.
so yeah, exactly. So on behalf of Dan and myself, thank you for tuning in again to the Optimus NFL show, your ultimate football destination, bringing you closer to the game and enjoying all of our fun picks and our random rants that we go on from time to time. So thank you all for listening, and we will see you all next time.